So good afternoon, everybody. So I'll be taking you through the process of new product development, a journey from concept to market, and we will look at each and every step in detail. Okay, and so I will just first introduce myself. So I'm a techno marketing professional with in-depth knowledge in product formulation, conceptualization, design development, testing, deployment, and launch. I spent about 15 years working in food beverages, oral care, personal and home care industry. I did my executive program in sales and marketing from IIM Calcutta and also completed my bachelor's and master's from Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai. I currently work for Liberty Oil Mills Limited, who is one of the largest importers and processors of edible oils and fats in the country. And as a DGM, and the role of DGM, I look after the product management, business development, and innovations in ready to eat and ready to cook category. So this is what we will be discussing today. Step one will be ideation, followed by idea screening, then concept design and testing, then commercial viability, then we will do product development, then product testing, and finally product launch and commercialization. We will discuss in detail the steps involved or the procedure involved in each of these steps. Okay, and we go into the details of it. So first of all, we'll see what is new product development. So, as per Product Development and Management Association, NPD, a new product development process, is defined as a disciplined and defined set of tasks and steps that describe the normal means by which a company repetitively converts embryonic ideas into sellable product services. And the central aspect and at the core of the NPD lies the product design and conceptualization. That is from where everything starts. Okay. Now, why NPD strategy? Why do we require an NPD strategy in the first place? Now, as per McKinsey's survey, you will see only 4 out of 7 product ideas enter the developmental stage, only 3 out of 14 product ideas get launched, and 1 out of the 7 product ideas yield a successful product. Apart from that, if we look from the business standpoint of view or a company's point of view, suppose in the current market in which the company is operating, there are no more growth opportunities left. There are a number of competitors in the market, okay? And the only way to survive in the current market is by lowering the prices or cutting the prices and eventually sacrificing on your profit margins. Secondly, you will see adaptability. A company needs to be adaptable to the changes happening in the marketplace. So nowadays the marketplace is very dynamic. Preferences of the consumer are changing at a faster rate never than before. Okay, and in order to keep pace with these changes, one needs to be very fast in terms of the innovations which they do to the products. That might be small innovations here and there, okay, incremental innovations I will say, okay. And then there is also increased competition in the market. Apart from that, if your competitor enters with an advanced technology into the market, which leaves your technology redundant, you're out of the game. So you need to be on your toes. You need to have a new product developed in your kitty with the foresight in mind, so that you can quickly respond to the competitor. Lastly, product diversification. Now, when I say a product diversification, it is of two types. One is concentric and conglomerate. When I say concentric, product diversification happens within the category. And when I say conglomerate, the diversification happens beyond categories or in a different category. For example, I have a manufacturer who is currently manufacturing household care products. Let's take household care as a category, and the manufacturer is currently manufacturing products such as dishwash liquid or dishwash powder, dishwash soap. Then, as a part of business strategy, the company decides to launch floor cleaners. So that is a kind of concentrate diversification which is happening inside a category. We say of conglomerate diversification. Conglomerate diversification will be what going beyond categories. So today a particular manufacturer is doing or manufacturing consumer personal care products, consumer goods. As a part of the corporate strategy, the company now decides to enter a real estate market. Okay, so for example, Godrej. They started with Godrej Foods at Vadala in edible oils and vanaspatis. Then they diversified into consumer product business with GCPL, Godrej Consumer Products Limited, with cosmetic products. They have also entered a real estate business with Godrej Realities. So that is conglomerate diversification. Now, what we achieve by doing this, what a company achieves by doing this, it mitigates risk in the case of industry downturn. So the risk is diluted. It is spread across different products or different categories. So in case a particular category is not making profit, that can be compensated by other category. Now we'll see a 4W1S strategy, how it is applied in an NPD or a new product development process. So the 4W stands for why, who, what and which, and the last 1H is how. So we ask ourselves why a particular or a new product is required at this point of time. In the earlier slide, we discussed about the business point of view or a corporate strategy point of view, why a new product is required. But if I look at it from a consumer point of view, why a new product is required, then it is required to fulfill the unmet need of a consumer. We also need to understand who exactly the consumer is, what are his preferences, okay, what are his aspirations. We need to understand the socio-economic status of the consumer in a whole. So we need to have a holistic view. It helps us to segment the market demographically. What is that unmet need? We need to understand that as well and in detail. Do I have a problem statement or a point of view for that unmet need? That is also required. Or we will prepare that while doing so. And I will take you in detail. We will take a case study of a particular typical consumer and we will build a problem statement upon it. Then which are those reasons or the driving forces driving for that need, behind that need? Which are the forces driving that need? We need to understand those. So this process exactly of 4W is about information gathering. We gather the whole lot of information and then we convert it into a problem statement. And lastly, once that problem statement is constructed, we then ask ourselves how to satisfy that unmet need. This is where the ideation process starts. Okay, so let's see in the next slide. So these are the new product development steps. So we start with first step, which is ideation. Now ideation are nothing but in this process what we do is we try to develop many ideas. It's about generating as much as ideas as possible in order to satisfy an unmet consumer need. That is what this process is all about. Okay. Then we filter those ideas based on some acceptance criteria. We will discuss those acceptance criteria as well in detail. And the idea which are filtered, which are going to the next step, are then tested. Or first we design a concept around each idea and then that each concept is tested against some action standards. The winning concept is then analyzed for its commercial viability. The commercially viable concept is then converted into a prototype during the product development stage. So if we start with 10 ideas, I screened down with 3 ideas the idea passing through the stage of concept testing, design, and testing. I develop three concepts for those three screened ideas. Then I check the commercial viability of these three ideas. I develop prototypes basis that concept or basis those concepts in the product development stage. I do product testing and then post the product testing results. Whichever option wins, whichever prototype wins is commercialized. So we'll start with the ideation phase. What exactly is ideation? It is the process of going wide in terms of ideas and outcomes. It is about generating as much ideas as possible. What ideation helps in? It helps in asking right questions to innovate. It uncovers the unexpected areas. We go beyond obvious solutions, and there is also a volume and variety which we build into innovation options. It brings together perspectives of diverse team members. Okay, so we'll go to the next step, which is the steps in ideation. So first step in ideation is empathizing. What is empathizing? Empathizing is nothing but you put yourself into the customer's shoes and you look from his or her point of view. Empathizing is actually done to gain insights. What the 4W1H, if we recollect what we discussed just now, is we gather all the information which is required so that we can have an insight. What are the underlying reasons behind that unmet consumer need? What are the emotions connected with that unmet consumer need? These emotions come as a handy message conveying tools for the marketing team during preparation of integrated marketing communication plan. So these emotions are also important. They help us to convey a message during a TVC. So all these things are required and captured. Then once we study the consumer from a holistic point of view, then we define that problem statement. When we define the problem statement, what we do is we make sense of all the information gathered during empathizing or in step 1. And we construct a meaningful problem statement out of it. We will take an example of a typical consumer and we'll construct a problem statement or a POV. What that POV defines, it defines the right challenge which we need to address. And once we know that how or the right challenge, we start brainstorming. Okay. Empathizing is then captured in the form of empathy map. Okay. With the user at the center, what the user feels, what the user thinks, what the user says, and what the user does about it. So we'll just take a typical example. So we say Sonali is a 22-year-old girl living in Mumbai. She is pursuing her master's in science from SNDT Mumbai. Her father is a government servant and mother is a housewife. She likes to watch movies. Her hobby is singing. She is her parents' only child, no siblings, but stays in a joint family with 2 uncles and her cousins. Her favorite singer is Sunidhi Chauhan and she also aspires to make her career in singing. But she has a problem with her teeth, which has a yellowish tinge, and she faces a problem of bad breath, because of which she is very cautious while speaking freely and maintains a certain distance in order to avoid the bad breath being noticed. She has visited a dentist for yellowing and bad breath problem. She wants sparkling white teeth and freshness in breath. Also, her family is on a lookout for a suitable groom for her. So this is what the current situation this typical consumer, or I say Sonali, is. We get to know the demographics of her. She is a 22-year-old girl. What are her aspirations? She wants to become a singer. What are the expectations from the family members? They want to get her married. What is her current problem? She has yellowish tinge in her teeth, on her teeth, and she has a problem of bad breath. Okay. As a result of that, what's happening? If I map it, you'll see. What is she thinking, Sonali? What people might think about me when they see my yellow teeth? People might be laughing at me because of my yellow teeth and breath. So there is a emotion or a sense of embarrassment in Sonali. She is fearful of speaking in front of people. So she is low on confidence. Okay? So she has a problem. Where should I start? She asks. Should I visit a dentist or maybe buy a proper toothpaste, something? So what she does, she goes to the dentist. She takes action. So this is an empathy map for Sonali where you understand Sonali, how exactly what is her problem, okay, what is she thinking, how is she feeling, okay, and you understand the emotions which she is going through. So we develop a point of view from this. So what exactly is a point of view? It refers to the position of the narrator in relation to the story, as indicated by narrator's outlook. Now, from which events are depicted by the attitude towards the character. So it's the three ways a story can be narrated are first person, second person, third person. And we'll be using a third person point of view. So we'll build a point of view out of this. So what's our point of view with respect to Sonali? We will see that. So who is the user in this case? You will see Sonali is a 22-year-old girl living in Mumbai. So she is a 20 to 30 years middle class girl. There is a socio-economic status who lives in a metro city, Mumbai. What she needs? She needs sparkling white teeth and fresh breath. What is the insight from that empathy map? That the girl is stigmatized by the bad breath and wants to look more confident in front of relatives and peer group. She is fond of her own smile and what she believes that मैं जब मुस्कुराती हूँ और खूबसूरत दिखती हूँ. So the point of view is a middle class girl, or the problem statement is a middle class girl living in metro city, 20 to 30 years old, living in metro city, needs sparkling white teeth and fresh breath because she wants to appear more confident and wants to look more beautiful when she smiles. We understood the emotions, we understood the demographics of the consumer, okay, and we understood that unmet need. So with this problem statement in front of us, we will now see how to solve this issue or how to satisfy this customer or consumer, I will say. So if you look at this POV, what should be the characteristics of the POV? It should have a narrow focus. It frames the unmet consumer need as a problem statement. So we have framed a problem statement with respect to the unmet consumer need. It should inspire and challenge your team. It should guide your innovation efforts. It should also inform the criteria for evaluating competing ideas. For example, whiteness, bad breath, or freshness in breath. It should capture people's attention. It should be valid, insightful, actionable, unique, narrow, and meaningful. So these are the characteristics of a problem statement or a point of view, which should be considered, or that's what a problem statement should indicate to you. Okay. So now what we do, we ideate with that problem statement in front of us. Now when we ideate, our first step is to convert this problem statement into smaller and actionable pieces. The how formula, or can my product. We convert this problem statement into these type of questions, which we ask to ourselves. Okay. Now, when I convert this, so if I say, how can we formulate our product? Maybe a toothpaste in this case. It's too broad. Can it be more specific, or can we narrow down the focus? So I say, how can our product impart gloss, shine, whiteness to the teeth? So we have narrowed down the focus. We become more specific. Can I add natural mint extract with green speckles to enhance its perception of freshness? So we become more specific now. Or I can say, can my product deliver both qualities of toothpaste and mouthwash? So it should be inspiring and challenging. So in this case, I may go for a totally different new product. It might not be a toothpaste as well, it might not be a mouthwash, it might be something else. A totally different format. Not a paste format or a liquid format, a totally different format. Maybe a chewing gum, I don't know. So you start the ideation sessions. So with these ideas in mind, so I can have 4 brainstorming sessions around these 4 questions. And with this, I start my ideation session. Now the ideation session which we will start. Okay, first of all, there are some tips which says that there are no bad ideas actually. Okay, let's everyone's creativity runs free. Okay, we need to capture everything what is said and done. The ideation session should be safe, comfortable, pleasant. Okay, and people should be in a happy state of mind, so that they can think freely. That is what is most important characteristic of an ideation session. And another important characteristic is that the team which is doing ideation should be a diverse team. It should come from different functions, so it should be cross functionality. So when you decide on a team for ideation session, you should have, first of all, the marketing guy will be leading this ideation session, or he will act as a key facilitator, because he is the one, he's gone to the market, he has seen the market, he is the one who has identified some gaps into the market. So he has a better idea in this case about the unmet consumer need. So he is the one who is facilitating, he or she is the one who is facilitating that session. Then there is a R&D guy coming in. Then there is a guy from HR, from a supply chain, from procurement, from production, from administration, from legal, from regulatory, from safety. So all these guys, from packaging. So all these guys form a part of that ideation team. They get together and start ideating on these questions. How can we reformulate our product, which is too broad? How can our product impart gloss and shine whiteness to the teeth? So keeping these problem statements in front, we start ideating. So while during the ideation session, the facilitator should go for the essence, should not go for completeness. For example, there was one idea, should I add mint extract? Okay, so that the consumer feels more freshness. That's indicated because of mint extract and the cooling effect of menthol. So the facilitator should not immediately turn to the supply chain guy and ask him, or the procurement guy to ask him for mint extract suppliers or ease of availability of mint extract suppliers. Or the facilitator should not turn immediately right at that point of time to an R&D guy to ask for the dosages, or to a regulatory guy to look at the permissible levels as per local regulations, maybe FSSAI regulations, maybe BIS regulations. You should not do at that point of time. All these questions are need to be asked, but at the later stage. So you just go for the essence, capture as many ideas as possible, jot them down, okay, and don't try to squeeze ideas from the audience. Let them happen, okay. And when you jot each an idea down, ensure a correct follow-up for those ideas. Whether he mean to add something else, or whatever you have noted down is correct, is in the correct sense what the person meant about the idea. So make that sure that correct follow-up means that's what he exactly meant by the idea. That's what he wants. That's what he is perceiving about the idea. Okay? Because ideas are nothing but they are abstract most of the time, or might be concrete as well. So you need to ensure what exactly the person meant out of it. Then we go to the next stage of idea screening. Now, when I do idea screening, there are some specific criteria which I look for. So I said, suppose I've got 10 ideas, I start screening for them. So when I do idea screening, I look at these criteria such as sanity check. Is the idea totally abstract or complex? Is it rational? Can it really work? Or suppose there are some constraints with respect to the idea. Maybe consistency with the budget resources or launch timing. For example, the idea which is put forward may require a lot of capital expenditure, which will consume majority of your budget resource, or the initial investment cost is more. And also, in order to convert that product idea into a tangible product will take long time. Maybe my launch timings are Q4 2022, while the product might be ready by Q4 2023. So you screen that idea out. Then you look at the relevance. Does the idea achieves your objective? Objective in the sense there are two objectives. One is functional objective and other is business objective. Functional objective means, does it technically give you the benefit what the consumer requires? Does it has that capacity, that idea? We have to look at that. Okay. Then we talk of assumptions. Is the idea based on flawed assumptions? If it is based on flawed assumptions, the assumptions are totally wrong, they are logically wrong, screen them out. Then we talk of feasibility. When I talk of feasibility, I say if the product can be converted into a tangible product with available technology, which is currently available, or there is some technology which is still not invented and we need to invent that in order to convert that product idea into a tangible product, then it will take a lot of time. It will take a lot of effort. With respect to our launch timelines, then please screen that out if that is not required. If you are ready to invest and wait for that much amount of time, then take it ahead, not an issue. Then we look at the risks part of it. Risks part of it means if the idea requires addition of certain ingredient that might be scarce or rarity, or there may be problem with the supply of that particular raw material, then what we need to do in that case? Or suppose it's not suitable for human consumption, then we turn to your regulatory. That is where your regulatory person comes into play. You should ask if this is suitable, then at what permissible level we should dose it as per local regulations. And then we also turn to the R&D guy to ask him, if I add it at this permissible level which is allowed by FSSAI, then can it be efficacious? Can it deliver the intended benefit which we need to give to the consumer at that level? The legal guy will come into play. We need to see if that particular technology or the ingredient is not patented, or chemical is not patented by somebody else. Then otherwise we will be infringing that. So to take that legal aspect also into consideration. Then we talk of value, which is the most important thing. When I talk of value, means how valuable is the idea in terms of its market potential. Market potential means, in case of the typical consumer Sonali which we studied, is that how much with that demographic segmentation, or the demographic segmentation as per Sonali offers how much market size. Is the market substantial enough with that particular demographic segmentation? Are the profit margins good enough? Okay. Here the profit margins, the definition for good enough profit margins will vary from industry to industry. So you will see we should do a SWOT analysis for each and every idea. Okay. Now I just made an acronym out of this idea screening, which is SCAR-FARVI. So that is just so that we can remember it very easily. So once we filter out this idea, the filter ideas goes to the concept design and testing stage. Now, why we require a concept design? So first of all, concept design and testing. So we need to first design a concept around each idea which has been screened, okay, or which has passed all the acceptance criteria. Now, concept testing is a process of understanding how consumers feel about your product idea prior to its creation and release. So what does concept design and testing tells us? It tells us whether the concept is appealing to my target consumer. Are there any gaps with respect to the current user experience? How well this concept holds up against competitors? And I am communicating my benefits to the consumer? is my communication is effective. That means whether he is understanding all the benefits with whatever I am communicating. And out of this concept, which is the most potential concept where I should dedicate all my resources toward developing it further. So that is what is the outcome of a concept test and designing processes. So a concept design process, this diagram will actually help you to see what goes as an input in a concept design. So here in this stage we are designing a concept around each idea. So these are the inputs. So concept design or concept architecture should have a brand name, should have a positioning line, should showcase a unique product attribute, and should also convey a consumer benefit while experiencing the product, and should have a price tag in it. Okay, basis which we will ask for purchase intent. Okay, so sample concept. Teeth and gum problems are harmful to your oral and overall health, including introducing new XYZ toothpaste. So with this sample concept, we will just read the sample concept and we will see if we have all these aspects in it. So clinically proven to remove yellow stains and improve breath freshness. Okay, its unique formula has a balanced mixture of Ayurvedic ingredients recommended by Ayurveda Charyas as one of the solutions for teeth and gum problems. Brushing teeth with advanced formula of XYZ, you feel the fresh cooling effect and teeth will become more white. Okay, so and then there is a price tag in it, there is a picture of product pack, and there is a picture of the product as well. So we'll just go back to this slide. We'll see brand name. Brand name is there, which is XYZ toothpaste. Then there is a positioning line. Clinically proven to remove yellow stains and improve breath freshness. So we are positioning it with respect to its product functionality, which is removing yellow stains and improving the breath freshness. Then what is the unique product attribute? Its unique formula has a balanced mixture of Ayurvedic ingredients, which is recommended by Ayurveda Acharyas. That is its unique attribute. What is the consumer benefit? Post the product use, you will get brushing teeth with advanced formula of XYZ. You will feel the fresh cooling effect, and teeth will become more white. And then there is a price tag on it: 40 grams 20, 80 grams 35, 150 grams 60. So we have included all these parameters or aspects into a concept. What are the outputs of that concept? Maybe some tagline, punchlines to integrated marketing communication. Definitely what functional benefits it should deliver. So formulation development guy will work on that particular formulation to deliver those benefits. A legal team for claims development. An input to the packaging team for the design of the hardware, and definitely to the marketing team for the pricing strategy. So this is what the concept output it gives post concept testing. So we will discuss now concept testing methodologies. So what are concept testing methodologies here? So there are three types. One is monadic, sequential monadic, and comparative. In monadic, respondents complete a full evaluation of a single concept. So one concept at a time, that's it. Not at a time, only a single time, a set of consumers is shown a single concept, which they evaluate from all perspectives. So you got a questionnaire, the interviewer asks to the respondents. Then there is sequential monadic, where multiple concepts are shown, but one at a time in an isolated environment. No two concepts at a time. So if there are three concepts, the particular set of respondents will read first concept, then will have an interview, go to the next concept, analyze it, then go to the next concept and analyze it. Then there is a concept selection. comparative. Now, what is the, if there is a competitor brand which have kept as a standard, then what we do, we show both of the concepts, competitor concept as well and our concept as well, and then we ask the consumer to choose the best of it, best from both of them. That is comparative concept selection. So this is what I was saying. Monadic respondents see only one stimulus, and then sequential monadic respondents see all stimuli. Respondents see subset or stimuli in random order. That means if you see sequential monadic, one concept at a time, they finish and they move on to the next concept. Or if we want to reduce the sample size, then what can I do? A particular set of respondents is shown first two concepts, okay? Then the second set of respondents is shown next two concepts, okay? So there is a difference of concepts. So all these four concepts are different, okay? Then we will see the comparison between these methodologies. So first is monadic, more detailed findings we get to monadic. While in sequential monadic, yes, the detailed findings are more, of course. And in paired comparative, it does not provide rich detail with respect to concept. It is only says which concept is the best, either US or competitors. With respect to sample size, monadic requires a larger sample size. Sequential monadic still smaller as compared to monadic. And paired comparative requires the smallest sample size. With respect to cost effectiveness, monadic testing methodology is more expensive. Sequential monadic is less expensive as compared to monadic, and paired comparative is the least expensive. When I say field time, fielding time is the time required to collect responses from the field. So monadic has a slower fielding time. Sequential monadic is faster as compared to monadic because we are giving multiple concepts. The sample size is smaller compared to monadic. That's why the field time is also faster. And paired comparative is much faster compared to sequential monadic. So we are in paired comparative, we're showing all the concepts at a time. So definitely the sample size is less and the response collection time is also less, or field time is less. So we'll see a concept variations here in this, how these concepts vary. So there are subtle variations when we show the concept. So there are three concepts, concept 1, concept 2 and concept 3. So in concept 1, I have included tooth sensitivity. So if you read the concept, the new formula is effective in killing germs, cause gum inflammation and bad breath, and this new advanced formula is a perfect solution for tooth sensitivity and will effectively remove yellow stains and makes teeth whiter or white. If you go to the second concept, the first line is the same, but I have included clove oil. A clove. The benefit which we will get the consumer is the same, effectively remove yellow stain and makes teeth whiter, and the formula is designed for healthy gums and teeth. So there is an additional statement which I have added. I go to concept 3, the clue is changed from clove oil to basil oil. Rest remaining the same, the consumer benefit is the same, but I have done a differentiator here where I say instead of healthy gums and teeth, I say stronger gums and healthy teeth. So these are three variations. These are sample variations which I have shown you. What is done practically, all these concepts are shown to the consumer. And at the end of the session, he or she is told to play back. Now, if suppose a particular consumer is more concerned about tooth sensitivity, in addition to yellow stains or making teeth whiter, she will recollect the concept 1 more quickly. If a particular consumer has used clove oil previously, or everybody has used clove oil previously for teeth aches, toothaches and other problems, they will recollect or play back the concept 2 very quickly. That connection is made very quickly. Okay? Or maybe some have used basil oil. Or some of the consumers say, nee, healthy gums and teeth doesn't sound that stronger, but stronger gums and healthy teeth is much better. he or she can recollect it more faster. So all these concepts give you an idea how your communication should go to the consumer. You put forward to your product development guy and tell him, yeah, this is my concept, and you please mentioned in the concept, these are the benefits which my consumer should get. This is the concept which has won, which the consumer has liked. Do you have that technology in your toolbox to deliver? So concept development, as I said earlier, forms the core of the new product development process, because it gives inputs to your integrated marketing communication. It gives inputs to your product development guy. The legal guy comes into play. The regulatory guy comes into play. The legal guy will say whether I can make some numerical claims. Can I do some differentiating claims with respect to competitors? This is the concept which the consumer has liked. You get to know the price point. You get to know the purchase intent. Definitely, you ask for the purchase intent. The go no go will like to buy the product. Is there is a repeat purchase intent with respect to the product? All these questions you will ask to the consumer. And the winning concept is taken further or evaluated for its commercial feasibility. Okay. So we come to commercial feasibility. For a project to go through metrics, so here we take into consideration the NPV, which is net present value of the future cash flows of that particular product, the required rate of return, and the modified rate, internal rate of return. RRR is the required rate of return and MIRR is modified internal rate of return. What are those metrics, actual standards? A project is accepted if NPV is positive for all the future cash flows and if the required rate of return is less than the modified internal rate of return. And a project is rejected if NPV is negative and if the required rate of return is greater than modified internal rate of return. So what I have done in this case, I have used a capital asset pricing model, and these are the variables which are there. Maybe so that is a capital expenditure of 10 lakhs, I see a corporate tax rate which currently is of 22%, depreciation rate for that particular product category is 40%, business lending rate at this point of time, I take there are many various, I've taken just an example of it, 15%. The risk-free rate in India is 6.5%, which is the risk-free rate of the government securities, bonds, and the expected market rate of return is 19%. And the risk factor, the beta, is 1. With this in mind, what I do is I will try to show you an Excel sheet where sample calculations are done. So I said 10 lakhs, I said, okay. So I reduce here a capex of 10 lakhs. This is 1, 2, yeah. This 10 lakhs. Rest remaining the same. I will go down. So these are my sales revenue figures which my marketing team will give of year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. Okay. I've taken the depreciation rate as 40%. I calculate the COGS, which is cost of the goods sold, the RMPM cost, utility and labor cost. Okay, I calculate this. Then I calculate the selling and administrative expenses, which I've taken as 5% of the sales revenue. Then there are R&D expenses, which I've again taken as 10% in this case. Okay, so heavy R&D is done. Then I deduct everything out of my sales revenue. I get the operating income, which is earning before EBIT. Okay, earning before interest and tax. Okay, so I reduce corporate tax from this. So my net profit after tax is this. I add back depreciation because depreciation is not the amount or actual money which is a cash outflow. Okay, it is the standard, it's a book value which we take. I add back the depreciation and I calculate the operating cash flows. So here the idea is to have all the operating cash flow should be positive. If all your will be positive in that case. Okay. So this is how I do my calculations. Okay, and see the commercial viability of a particular product, whether it is commercially viable or not. And then I decide on the further step, which product to take ahead. And we go to the next product development stage. So we take the most commercially viable idea or the concept for product development. So in this case, maybe there are two concepts. Both are commercially viable. Both are giving us the expected rate of return, the expected profit margins or intended profit margins, which help us allow our business objective, is taken to the product development stage. In the product development stage, we develop different prototypes. We do a 3-month stability of it. So in a lab scale study, then we go to a bigger scale, maybe 200 kg, 150 kg, from 5 to 10 kg. We again do a 3-month stability study of it, and the same prototypes, if there are two concepts which are commercially viable, we develop two prototypes, and those two prototypes are then sent for product testing to the consumer. So there are some product testing types, how it is done. So what are those product testing types? So first is a blind product test, there is branded product test, there is in-home use test, and there is a central location test. All these tests can be done with your product. Now it is basis your objective which test you need to do. Okay, now when I say a blind product test, what does blind product test is? It is done in blank packaging. There is no brand, there is no artwork on the package, it is just blank, white. And why it is done? Because I will just tell you, it is just assessment of the product on its intrinsic merit. When I say the actual product quality which is there, that product wins only on its functional attributes. The halo effect of the brand is totally removed in this. So product has to win on its intrinsic qualities. And I think clearing a blind product test is extremely difficult. Okay, your product should be a wow, should give a wow effect. That is when it will win a blind product test. For example, a particular brand is there and is struggling for a brand appeal. Okay, we need to know the reason. So for that we conduct a blind product test and we come to know whether the issue is rooted in the brand image itself, or the product itself is not functioning well, or is not delivering the expected or intended or advertised consumer benefit. Or it can be done for a high brand appeal product. It will give an insight that if the product is solely winning on functional attribute, or it is the halo effect of the brand. So both the things can be studied with a blind product test. And as I said, here the product wins solely on its intrinsic qualities. We go to a branded product test, it's done with a final brand artwork. So we study the product holistically, thoroughly, the way it is going to be appear into the market or appear to the consumer. Now, how these tests are how to conduct a blind product test or how to conduct a branded product test? So there are two ways of conducting it. One is in-home use test and other is central location test. In-home use test is specifically done for packed consumer goods. Okay, it is done specifically for packed consumer goods. That means such as detergent powders, fairness creams, toothpaste, so that a person can use it in its natural, realistic environment. For example, a fairness cream. Fairness cream you just cannot give to a particular consumer to test and go the next day and ask the effect. Okay, so that is not possible immediately. The person need to use it for at least 2 to 3 weeks. So you go in the fourth week to that person and then ask for the effect, ask for the change, what benefit the consumer has got. So it takes time. So for such kind of products, an IHUT or in-home use test is suitable. Okay. Now coming to central location test. In this, the testing takes place doesn't in a controlled environment or a pre-booked hall in a shopping mall, wherever, or your own company's testing lab. Here the advantage you can have trained respondents, okay, or a trained sensory panel. This happens most in the food industry, where flavors, a taste is to be analyzed, sensorials. So this sensorial analysis, okay, or a sensory analysis of a particular product is done with a CLT, central location test. So this trained panel comes to your location, prescribed location, does the testing in a controlled environment. You have very good 1:1 interaction with each of these sensory panels, and since all these sensory panel people is been trained, they give you the most accurate feedback as well. Okay. Also, now this is about fast moving consumer products I'm talking now. If you talk a different category such as iPhone or something, I cannot give iPhone for a home use test, isn't it? It's not feasible. Okay, I cannot give a washing machine, I cannot give a vacuum cleaner for a home use test. Okay, so as the category differs, your testing method will differ. So for a washing machine or a vacuum cleaner, a central location test is where the people come and they look at the demo, and basis that demo they decide, okay, or they might use it once. So CLT is preferable for those in-shop demos which happens. Now, once the product testing results are out and any of your prototypes which has won, which is then taken for a further step of product launch. So where do you do a main plant trial? You pack it in a final approved artwork and packaging material, and you do a 3 month stability study, and then you release it to the market. That's it. So that is your product launch. There are post-launch reviews which are done, which we will not be discussing in this, but post-launch review is done after the product is launched into the market. Okay, so this is the whole process of it, right from conceptualization till launch. Okay, so if you have any questions, I open my deck for questions. You can please ask them right now. I'll try to answer from my end.
Sir, some of our audience are having some some questions. Mr. Kishore is asking, what if there is a tie in terms of product testing results of two options? So, would you like to throw light on this?
Yeah, so if suppose both of the product prototypes are doing well with respect to your action standards, then we look at the commercial viability of them, which has more profit margins or which is more easy to manufacture. So we look at both these options and then we decide the way forward. That is what we do.
Hope Mr. Kishore, your question was answered. Yeah. So, uh, the second question is from Dilip. He asked, like, is the product testing is a quantitative test?
Yeah, product testings are quantitative testing methods. So they give you an idea about what will be the market share. So basically, these product testings are done with a sample set of 200 consumers, maybe 4 to 5 metro cities across India, and then basis those result, those numbers, the purchase intent results and all, they decide what will be my expected or they forecast a volume out of it. This might be your volume after the launch.
Okay. Hope your question was answered. The next question is when to select CLT and IHUT option. This is by Rosalind.
Yeah. So CLT, as I said, central location test is done for products which you cannot actually give the consumers to use at home. For example, a washing machine, a vacuum cleaner. You cannot give them these customers to use in home. For example, now another example is sensorials. You want to check the sensorials for food product or for soup. Then I call them at a particularly central location, a prescribed place such as a testing laboratory of my company, and then I ask these guys to taste them so that I can one-on-one discuss with them and understand the nitty-gritties of the test and sensories, because sensory evaluation is done is if it's done by the expert, it's more accurate and you can hit the target as early as possible. Yeah.
Okay. Some of the audience who are watching this session from YouTube live, I'll pick up few questions from there as well. The question is, this is by Nivriti. If I want to match and outperform with respect to my competitor, the product, and then what concept testing method I need to use?
Okay, so in this case, what we need to do, you have to first compare the concepts of the competitor and US as well. When you compare them, we understand the differences between it, the gaps. Okay, with that in mind, we then alter our concept. Either we match the concept and we add some more, unique product attributes which will outplay the competitors' attributes in our concept. So we do a paired comparison test of the concept and we develop a new concept or maybe couple of new concepts and then place it in a sequential monadic test. So sequential monadic, maybe you will having your two concepts at the first and third concept will be a competitor to one set of respondents. Another set of respondents, you place competitor concept first and your concept afterwards, just to take care of the order bias. And accordingly, then we refine our concept further. So first paired comparative followed by sequential monadic. And maybe at the end, if you wanted to make sure, again do a paired comparative out of these two refined concepts, whichever has won. So that will solve your issue.
So I think there are no more questions. Okay. Sir, on behalf of EPSM Alumni Association, I want to thank you for your insightful presentation on NDP and its processes that takes a service or a product from concept to market. Thanks to all the participants for your active participation. Thank you so much for your time and happy weekend.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.